Greetings, everyone. It's FACT, the Philadelphia Association for Critical Thinking. We're having one of our bi-monthly meetings. Today we have Kat McLeod, and my image just popped off the screen here. Here we go. She's from Edmonton, Alberta. She's a skeptical activist, consumer advocate, and is passionate about dispelling information, especially regarding herbal remedies and other woo-woo involved with medical therapies and whatnot. She's coping with the consequences of taking herbal supplements has given her a unique perspective that she shares with the next generation of healthcare professionals, arming them with the knowledge that can hopefully prevent the kind of suffering that she has endured. Why don't you all join me in welcoming Kat McLeod.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. And Kenny Biddle says hello to everybody.
Yay, Kenny.
So I suppose I should just share my screen and jump right in, yeah? Go. Hopefully that works for everybody.
Looks good.
Fantastic. So thank you all for joining me today to discuss the dangers of alternative medicine. And I use that in, air quotes because I think a lot of times what they call medicine does a lot more harm than good. So I've spent my entire adult life being a consumer advocate and a skeptical advocate. I've spoken to countless pharmacy and medical students about my personal experience with herbal products, and I'm so honored that I have the chance to speak with you guys today about what I like to call uncomplimentary alternative medicine, or so-called complementary alternative medicine, which I call scam. So while this demotivational poster is funny, it's actually become one of my life mottos. I'm going to take you on an abridged version of my herbal hell story so that you or somebody you care about can learn from my mistake.
How you doing?
When I was about 20 years old, I started taking my inhaler more regularly for my asthma. And it was really becoming an issue for me. And my GP said, maybe we should start you on steroids. And I'd seen steroids cut my grandmother's life short, so I really didn't want to go that route. At that time, a friend of my mother suggested I go see her herbalist. Her family had been going to see him for over 10 years, and he'd been in business for 25 years. So I thought, okay, what could the harm be? I went and I was absolutely amazed at the things he was able to tell me just by taking my pulse in different places on my wrist. He initially prescribed me some loose herbs that I should brew into a tea and drink several cups of a day. So I took this large, stinky bag of oddities home, and I was so excited to see if drinking the tea could help me. I even recorded the process of brewing it all up, and this was pre-TikTok days. However, the concoction was so disgusting, I could barely get 2 sips of it into me without wanting to gag. So there's no way I could take multiple cups of this in a day. I thought it was a huge waste of time and money, and I was so disappointed and discouraged. I went back to the herbalist and I explained what had happened, and he told me that I could take some capsules instead. So, undeterred and desperate to get healthy, I handed over more money, and thus began my adventure with Asthma. I was curious about the herbs and I read up on what I was taking and how they might interact with other things. But you got to keep in mind that I was young, and so was the internet, and Dr. Google wasn't yet seeing patients. So I was referencing actual books, which may have been out of date. I thought I was making an informed decision, but my one ignorance was that I didn't know that herbs and health foods weren't regulated in Canada. I was naive and assumed everything that was sold in Canada had been vetted. It didn't take long for me to notice a big difference in how I was feeling. The sinus issues I battled my entire life and my asthma were virtually gone. I could finally breathe freely. I was working out 2 hours a day, 7 days a week, and yet I was started to gain a lot of weight. And I'm not talking muscle mass either. I had limited mobility in my neck. Cuts and bruises were taking ages to heal. I had a lot of trouble concentrating. I was emotional, more emotional than most 20-year-old women. And I was getting these strange marks all over my body. I secretly worried that I might have cancer or some awful disease, so I went back to my GP, and she didn't know what to tell me. She recommended I just stop taking the herbs to see what would happen. Excuse me. I didn't think that was a good enough reason because they were really helping my asthma. But she sent me to a specialist, and this actually kicked off 5.5 months of testing and a litany of specialists. I ended up having tests 2 to 3 times a week, everything from blood work to biopsies. And doctors would never tell me in advance what they were looking for, only what they ruled out once the test results came back. But, excuse me, I'm not the most patient person in the world. So I also started reading medical books to see what may have happened to me, what might be going on. So I figured out from these medical textbooks that I likely had something called Cushing's. And when I was referred to an endocrinologist, he confirmed that I did in fact have Cushing's. I'd been taking the herbs for about 10 months and had gained about 50 kilograms or 110 pounds. The doctor said if I hadn't been eating so well and exercising so vigorously, I likely would have gained twice as much weight in those 10 months. I no longer recognized myself when I saw my reflection, and I developed the horrible moon face and buffalo hump because, when you're feeling really awful, you need medical terms like that to really kick down your self-esteem a little bit further. But now that we knew I had Cushing's, I'd hoped they could fix me. But they weren't sure why I had developed it because Cushing's is normally caused by cancer on your adrenal or thyroid glands. And I'm like, I didn't have that. So instead of Cushing's disease, what I actually developed was something called Cushing's syndrome. And because they didn't know why I had Cushing's syndrome, they didn't know how to treat me. So one day over lunch, my endocrinologist was talking to a pediatric specialist about their unique cases. I call us freaks, but the medical profession frowns on that. So the peds doctor had 3 cases, 3 children who all had very weird symptoms, but none of them had the same symptoms as each other. So as he's talking about these 3 cases, my endocrinologist is pinging in his head. And he's like, cat has that, cat has that, cat has that. And it turns out I had all of the 3 symptoms. I was the key. That's how we found out that all of us were taking Asthma-1. So the endocrinologist called me after lunch and said, hey, do you have any of those capsules that we could maybe test? And since I worked across the street from the hospital, I ran them over in my coffee break. And the tests that they did showed that Asthma-1 had a hidden ingredient not listed on the packaging called cow gallstones. Yeah, you heard that right. Cow gallstones. Apparently, there's a huge market for that. And these were acting like a corticosteroid, 12 times more potent than prednisone. I was taking 9 capsules a day, or the equivalent of 108 prednisone a day. Yeah, so that's why I developed Cushing's syndrome. The other patients were on a lower dose, which is why they didn't have all the symptoms I had. And had I stopped taking cold turkey 5 months earlier, like my GP said, just to see what would happen, I would have died. As it is, I almost died when they tried to wean me off once they knew it was the herbs, because they don't really know how to wean somebody off 108 prednisone a day. So once I knew what was making me sick, I faxed the herbalist to tell him it was his products to blame. He'd seen me get sicker and sicker and kept recommending different herbs to help with all of the various symptoms I had developed. I thought that he would want to know what he was selling was actually to blame, but he didn't care. He kept selling Asmawan, even knowing it was dangerous. He didn't mind that he was hurting people, even children. For him, I guess it was all about the money. As a side note, he had an intern working with him who also read my facts that said, hey, it's your stuff making me sick. And the intern was taking loose herbs like the stuff I had originally started taking to treat the eczema he had on his hands. He decided, based on my facts, to ask a grad student friend of his to test his herbs. It showed that they were coated with 3 times the legal amount of DDT allowed in China. DDT is a known carcinogen that has been illegal in North America for my whole lifetime. And it turns out that handling the loose herbs at the shop every day was actually eating away the flesh on his hands. He didn't actually have eczema. So he stopped working at the herbalist shop and went into iridology instead. And for those who aren't familiar, iridology is a so-called alternative medicine treatment that became popular in 1881, where ailments are supposedly detected by looking at someone's irises and comparing them to an iridology chart, like one of these. But back to my story. I was livid. Got the red-headed rage going on. I spoke with a lawyer who told me that I couldn't sue the herbalist. I could only sue the government since there weren't any regulations in place for herbal products. At the time, I was told I likely wouldn't live very long, certainly not long enough to see a court case come to fruition. When they said I'd be dead before I was 30, I told them I'd be 80 and dancing on their grave. Thank you very kindly. I've always been a little bit spicy. So I became vocal. I wanted to warn everyone, so I spoke with pharmacists and coworkers, anyone who would listen, even people who didn't want to listen. I got my story out there. I was in a local newspaper a couple of times, and through it all, I never came across any of the parents of the 3 children who were also affected by asthma 1. I thought that they would have been as incensed as I was, and they would want to speak out and warn other parents. But perhaps the guilt and shame was too much for them to be willing to be vocal. It can be incredibly difficult to admit that you made a mistake, especially one with such big consequences. Shame and embarrassment can be crippling, and I assume that since the children were on lower doses of Asmawan, that they were able to be weaned off without many lasting side effects, since that's what happened to my sister, who was also taking a lower dose of Asmawan. I became a guest speaker for 3rd and 4th year pharmacy students at the University of Alberta. I would tell them my story at the start of every term. An inspector from Health Canada would also speak, and the stories she told were terrifying. She spoke about inspecting manufacturing plants and seeing mouse droppings or broken glass being mixed in with the products that were being made into capsules. There was no safety or cleanliness standards being kept at many places, and there were, and still are, too few inspectors to do regular site inspections. She once told me about a couple who wanted to sell a supplement called ground alfalfa. Apparently it's good for arthritis, but they wanted to make sure that they were doing things properly. Good for them. She told them to send her a sample, which she then sent off to a lab in Vancouver for testing. Now, normally these results would be sent to her in the mail, but this time the lab phoned her and asked where she got this sample from because it was the most toxic contamination that they had ever seen. So when she went back to the couple to find out where they sourced the alfalfa from, they told her that they were picking it off the side of the highway that ran near their home. It was covered in pesticides and pollution from the highway. Goodness, so I had developed a friendship with the Health Canada inspector. Her name was Elaine. And we would keep each other in the loop about what we were doing and if there was any way we could help each other out. So instead of suing the government of Canada, I ended up volunteering my time as part of a stakeholder group with Health Canada to have natural health product regulations created. I felt this was the only way I could ensure that other people would have more protection than I had. The regulations came into force on January 1st, 2004. And while the NHP regulations aren't perfect, they are a good starting point and help to ensure things like good manufacturing processes, including proper labeling, can occur. Also, product recalls can happen. Items can be banned for sale, and manufacturers can be held accountable if necessary. So why should you care about my story and why I became a consumer protection advocate? Well, it's because this could just as easily happen to you or someone you love. This is a marketplace built on deception. About 20 years ago, it was estimated that 4 billion people worldwide regularly use natural health products, which was over 65% of the global population. That number has since increased recently to 80% of people worldwide relying on herbal products or supplements for some part of their primary health care, with the majority of products remaining untested and unmonitored. Between 80 and 90% of the natural health products available worldwide come from Asia, and 60 to 80% of those are from China. The efficacy is questionable at best, and the safety of most herbal products is compromised by a lack of quality controls, inadequate labeling, and the absence of appropriate patient information, including warnings about potential interactions. In many places, like Canada, manufacturers only have to self-attest to the accuracy of their claims. They don't have to provide evidence or do studies. In America, there are no strict regulations except for a few exceptions that fall under the umbrella of dietary supplements. You don't need a license to sell supplements in the United States of America. In a 2019 study completed by the U.S. Drug-Induced Liver Injury Network, that's a mouthful, it assayed the contents of some herbal and dietary supplements. The aim of the study was to determine the accuracy of product labeling and to identify known hepatotoxins. Of the 272 products obtained by patients in the study, 51%, or 141 products, were found to be mislabeled. 91 products had dangerous contaminants, including illegal steroids and prescription pain medication. Appearance enhancement, sexual performance, and weight loss products were the most commonly mislabeled. Of the 272 products, 96 were directly implicated as a cause for liver injury in 71 of the patients. Drug-induced liver injury from supplements accounts for 20% of all such cases in the USA. Research has identified approximately 17 supplements definitively linked to kidney damage, including traditional Chinese herbs, weight loss products, and athletic performance enhancers. According to QZ.com, making outrageous claims for alternative medicine is considered health fraud, except in the field of homeopathy, end quote. In fact, all prescription and non-prescription products labeled as homeopathic go to market without FDA approval. Do you know why homeopathy doesn't need FDA approval? Because it's nothing more than sugar pills. However, just because the product isn't harmful per se, that doesn't mean that people should be allowed to fleece consumers. The premise behind homeopathy, for those who don't know, is that like cures like. So to make a homeopathic preparation, you would take a main ingredient, dissolve it in a solution of water or pure alcohol, shake it or tap it, and then after a certain number of taps, whatever's in the recipe, you would take 1 drop out, put it in a new beaker of water or alcohol, shake it or tap it again, take 1 drop out, and repeat the process usually 100 times or more. So, for example, you would take an extremely diluted tincture or a pill containing belladonna, also known as deadly nightshade, which is a poisonous plant, to treat things like a fever, sore throat, or an ear infection. Practitioners believe that the water or pure alcohol that's being used has a memory of the main ingredient that was put in before it was diluted. Excuse me. But if that were true, wouldn't the water also have a memory of dinosaur poop? Because that was in the water once too. While these products are nothing more than placebo effects, they are expensive and misleading, especially since they're on store shelves next to actual medication. People taking homeopathy may be reluctant to seek medical attention. Excuse me. I love this quote from Tim Minchin. Alternative medicine, by definition, has either not been proven to work or been proven not to work. Do you know what they call alternative medicine that has been proven to work? Medicine. The supplement industry has positioned itself as a gentler, natural alternative, growing from 4 billion in annual sales in 1994 in the USA to 35.7 billion by 2022. However, it lacks strict oversight and evidence requirements that make modern medicines safe and reliable. I was skeptical, cautious, and I spent hundreds of dollars a month on herbal products that nearly cost me my life. And they destroyed my health permanently. I bought into the ancient fallacy that because traditional Chinese herbal remedies have been used for centuries, they should be safe and effective, as well as the natural fallacy that natural things are healthier. But to quote my sister, snake bites and arsenic are all natural too, but I don't recommend them. It's not just the delay in getting real medical care that causes harm. These poorly regulated treatments cost a lot of money, and they can create harm by interacting with prescription medications. Many herbal supplements affect the enzyme systems that regulate how drugs move through the body, how they're absorbed, distributed, and eliminated. When these enzymes systems are disrupted, medications can become either dangerously ineffective or toxic because they accelerate the breakdown of medications, making them ineffective, change how quickly or slowly medications are eliminated, and can create unpredictable and dangerous drug levels in the blood. Let's take a flashback to the 90s. Kava Kava became popular in the 1990s as a recreational, attractive drug, reaching peak popularity in 1998. Kava supposedly helped with stress and anxiety. There were Kava Kava juice bars popping up everywhere. We even had one on the University of Alberta campus. But shortly thereafter, they vanished. Why? Because kava was causing liver damage. And when mixed with alcohol, acetaminophen, or some prescription medications, which of course you'd never find on a university campus, right? It was actually causing people to become excessively drowsy. Some even became comatose. Chronic use can cause an irreversible dry skin condition, and when mixed with opioids, kava can lead to serious side effects such as respiratory distress, coma, or death. Even taking normal doses for a short time has resulted in liver failure and at least 1 death. And while you may be thinking, Kat, the 90s were so long ago, kava is still legal and sold to this day around the world. Of course, every cold and flu season, you hear about people talking about echinacea. It's so common. Surely it's safe, right? Of course it's not. Manufacturers can say something has echinacea in it, but what part of the plant is being used? The petals, the leaves, the stem, the roots? Was it a mature plant? What time of day was it harvested? Because if it's picked in the early morning or late in the evening, it probably has dew on it, which could make the plant moldy. While a few very small studies have shown very weak evidence for the prevention of colds when echinacea is taken regularly for a minimum of 6 to 8 weeks, there is no scientific studies which prove there are immune boosting benefits to help cure cold. You are simply paying for a placebo. St. John's wort is a popular supplement commonly used to treat depression, anxiety, and symptoms of menopause. It also appears in multiple medical case reports for causing serious drug interactions and health complications. It interacts with many pharmaceuticals, including migraine medications, antibiotics, antidepressants, birth control. Do you want a little surprise baby there? I don't think so. Blood thinners, certain pain medications like Tylenol. In fact, St. John's wort is the supplement that has the most documented interactions with prescription drugs. There are 595 known drugs to interact with St. John's wort across 20 different drug classifications. It can affect birth control pills by accelerating the breakdown in the liver. It can decrease blood levels of critical heart medications by 25 to 30%. It can reduce HIV medication levels by more than 50%. It can even interact with vitamins and other herbal supplements. Golden seal is often combined with echinacea to help prevent or fight colds, but it's also used to treat conjunctivitis, which is pink eye, lower blood pressure, treat hay fever, and gastro issues. It seems like a one herb cures all kind of supplement. However, it can change how quickly the liver breaks down some medications, and in some instances, it may increase the effects and or side effects of your medication. Common side effects include excitability, hallucinations, constipations, delirium, digestive disorders. It even may slow blood clotting. And the herbal Ozempic that has been going around lately has berberine, which is a main ingredient of a plant alkaloid, that can be extracted from golden seal. Berberine is virtually insoluble in water, and it has low intestinal absorption, which means those supplements, that herbal Ozempic, it's likely completely useless. However, that doesn't mean that there aren't any risks or possible side effects in taking it, because berberine has also been known to cause gastro issues. Let's talk about a few more, shall we? Most people have heard of ginkgo biloba and or ginseng. Ginkgo is used to treat a wide range of ailments, including heart disease, dementia, mental difficulties, sexual dysfunction. Yet, studies have not proven it effective for any of those conditions or ailments. It interacts with nearly 300 medications, including anticoagulants, antiplatelet drugs such as warfarin or heparin, even ibuprofen. It may increase your risk of bleeding, may decrease the effectiveness, and cause adverse reactions with antidepressants, anticonvulsions. In fact, for seizure drugs, it may actually increase your risk of seizures, and it can alter your body's response to diabetes medications, as well as reducing the effectiveness of statins. It just goes on, but you don't find any of that on the packaging. Ginseng is purportedly used to boost your immunity, your brain function, and your energy levels. There are over 100 prescription medications that interact with ginseng. Some of those may be clinically important, such as with the blood thinner warfarin. or other medications used to treat type 2 diabetes, or your antidepressants, or your immunosuppressants, or even some cancer treatments. There are so many side effects, I won't even get into them, but one is that it may cause birth defects if taken during pregnancy, or can have negative effects on infants if taken while breastfeeding. These are pretty serious, and yet consumers aren't warned about them. Green tea and green tea extract claims to improve your cardiovascular health, enhance your cognitive function, promote weight loss, regulate your blood sugar levels, support your digestive health, and protect against certain types of cancer. Green tea and green tea extract can also cause stomach issues, headaches, sleep issues. It hinders calcium and iron absorption, so it can cause anemia or iron deficiency, especially in women. Oh, and it's linked to liver disease. Let's take a quick look at some adverse reactions that have been reported in the news. Lori McClintock, the wife of Northern California Congressman Tom McClintock, consumed the herbal remedy white mulberry leaf shortly before her death on December 15th, 2021. According to Sacramento County Coroner, McClintock died from dehydration due to gastroenteritis caused by, quote, adverse effects of white mulberry leaf ingestion, end quote. She was found with, quote, a partially intact white mulberry leaf in her stomach, end quote. Though whether she took the dietary supplement containing the herb, ate it fresh or dried, or drank it in a tea, it's unclear from the autopsy. She had complained about an upset stomach while decorating her house for the holidays the day before she died. In the wake of Roe v. Wade being overturned, people, especially on TikTok and other social media platforms, are looking to induce herbal abortions by consuming mugwort or pennyroyal, which can cause liver failure, seizures, and even death. On March 29 of last year, 2024, I read about a health supplement in Japan that had been recalled after 5 people who had been taking them had died, and over 100 ended up in hospital. The pills, manufactured by Osaka-based Kobayashi Pharmaceutical Company, were taken off the shelves as a health scare began to grow. Since then, company officials confirmed that 114 people had been hospitalized. All had been taking products containing an ingredient named benakoji, which is a species of red mold. Traditionally, benakoji has been used to make Chinese sake and Okinawa fermented tofu. When made properly, yeast grows on rice products and produces various compounds, including lovastatin, which is a known product to lower your cholesterol. But when something goes wrong in production, instead you get citrulline, which is a chemical linked to kidney, liver, and cell toxicity. Since lovastatin is classified as a drug, it's often left out as an ingredient by supplement makers looking to avoid additional regulatory scrutiny. Many people use the herbal product because it's cheaper than prescription statin drugs. In Japan, some people developed kidney problems after taking the supplement, but the exact cause of the illnesses and deaths is still under investigation over a year later. Excuse me. The company has used the ingredient for years without incident until late last year. Well, late 2023, I should say. While the company learned of the issues in January of 2024, the public wasn't informed and the recall wasn't issued until late March. The health ministry warned the number of deaths may continue to rise as the full scope of the problem became apparent. The company knew that the product had been exported to China and Taiwan, but it's not sure if it was sold for use in those countries or if it was exported for resale elsewhere. Amid the fears over benakoji products, another 40 products containing the mold as an ingredient were also recalled, including crackers, miso paste, and a vinegar dressing because some products used the fungus as a food coloring. And in January of 2025, a report was published that revealed nearly half of the protein powders in the US market exceeded the safety limits for toxic metals. People use these powders hoping to improve their health, lose weight, gain muscle. It's a market that in 2023 was valued at 9.69 billion US dollars. 83% of the products on the market were tested, and 47% exceeded the safety thresholds. 21% were over the limit that requires warnings for products containing chemicals linked to cancer, birth defects, or reproductive harm. Plant-based powders had higher levels of metal than whey powders. Chocolate-flavored ones had the highest levels of heavy metals, 4 times more than vanilla. And the organic powders, they had on average 3 times the lead and double the cadmium than whey. But these findings don't often make the news because they aren't exciting to talk about. Instead, there's lots of fluff pieces, especially on the morning and midday news programs, that are meant to be health related, but in fact, they're often pushing pseudoscience around ways to, quote, stay healthy. And I get it. Nobody wants to be unwell. Being sick isn't fun. Going to the doctor is an ordeal for many people. Sitting nervously on that crinkly paper, waiting to find out what's wrong with you, hoping the news isn't too bad. The side effects of medication are often not fun to deal with either. So the health and wellness industry subtly reinforces what we've always been told: to eat a well-balanced diet and to be active. Who wouldn't rather do yoga on a beach instead of be in a hospital room? We may blame ourselves for our ill health because we weren't perfect with our eating in the past. But maybe we weren't as active as we should have been. So maybe there's a way, if we went to an extreme, that we could somehow atone for our mistakes and make up for the times we ate for pleasure instead of purpose. The possibility of having a natural solution is very appealing. I'd like to share a Carl Sagan quote from his 1995 book, The Demon Haunted World. Quote, "Pseudoscience speaks to the powerful emotional needs that science often leaves unfulfilled. It caters to fantasies about personal powers we lack and long for, like those attributed to comic book superheroes today and earlier to the gods. In some of its manifestations, it offers satisfaction of spiritual hungers, cures for disease, promises that death is not the end." End quote. You can see why it would be enticing, especially to vulnerable people. Let's go over a few of my favorite scam marketing myths. Claims that something can boost, improve, or strengthen your immune health. Well, how would they prove that? How can this claim be tested? Where are the peer-reviewed double-blind studies? Well, there aren't any. I'd like to read you an excerpt from an article published in the Harvard Medical Journal from February 2021. Quote, "The idea of boosting your immunity is enticing, but the ability to do so has proved elusive for several reasons. The immune system is precisely that, a system, not a single entity. To function well, it requires balance and harmony. There's still so much that researchers don't know about the intricacies and interconnectedness of the immune response. For now, there are no scientifically proven direct links between lifestyle and enhanced immune function. Many products on store shelves claim to boost or support immunity, but the concept of boosting immunity actually makes little sense scientifically. In fact, boosting the number of cells in your body, immune cells or others, is not necessarily a good thing. Attempting to boost the cells of your immune system is especially complicated because there are so many different cells in the immune system that respond to so many different microbes in so many different ways. Which cells should you boost? And to what number? So far, scientists do not know the answer. What is known is that the body continually generates immune cells. No one knows how many cells or what the best mix of cells the immune system needs to function at its optimal level. Walk into a store and you will find bottles of pills and herbal preparations that claim to, quote, support immunity, end quote, or otherwise boost the health of your immune system. Although some preparations have been found to alter some components of immune function, thus far there is no evidence that they actually bolster immunity to the point where you're better protected against infection and disease. Demonstrating whether a herb, or any substance for that matter, can enhance immunity is, as yet, a highly complicated matter. Scientists don't know, for example, whether a herb that seems to raise the levels of antibodies in the blood is actually doing anything beneficial for overall immunity. End quote. It has been proven that if you slap the word natural on a product, it's more likely to sell, even though it is meaningless. All it does is play into the fallacy that natural is best. Labeling something as natural implies that it's desirable, morally acceptable, or inherently good. This reasoning is known as the appeal to nature fallacy. The intention behind using the label natural is to make consumers feel good about the purchase, and it influences their buying decisions. The belief that natural equals healthier or safer has become widespread. However, the term natural doesn't provide any information about a product's healthfulness or safety. For instance, natural E. coli bacteria occasionally enters the food supply chain, and that can be deadly. On the flip side, synthetic or man-made folic acid is used in fortified foods, and it prevents serious health consequences for unborn children. So while the term natural can evoke positive feelings, it's essential to critically evaluate the product claims and make informed choices based on more than just labeling and marketing gimmicks. Detoxes are bogus. If you see something purporting to detoxify your body, it is garbage. If you only take one thing away from this talk, take that. Your liver and kidneys detoxify your body. And if they can't, you need medical intervention, not a funky smoothie or a crash diet. Detoxes and cleanses have gained popularity, but their effectiveness and safety remains controversial. So what are cleanses and detox diets? Typically, they're short-term dietary interventions designed to eliminate toxins from your body. It often involves a period of fasting for 1 to 3 days, followed by a strict diet of fruit, vegetables, fruit juices, and a lot of water. You should avoid specific foods containing heavy metal, contaminants, and allergens, which is good advice all the time. You should exercise regularly. Again, good advice all the time. You should eliminate alcohol, coffee, cigarettes, and refined sugar. Again, good all the time. Doing these things without the cleanser detox magical powder or drink would still have an effect. Many of the detox or cleanse plans include taking herbs, teas, supplements, and even colon cleanses. I don't know why, but people like putting coffee up their bums. Don't understand it. You may be wondering which toxins are eliminated with these detoxes and cleanses, but here's the catch. Detox diets rarely, if ever, specify the toxins that they aim to remove. The mechanisms behind the detoxification are also unclear. There's little to no evidence to support the idea that cleanses or detox diets effectively remove any toxins from your body. And people rarely talk about the potential risks and harmful effects. There's long-term limited research on the safety of these cleanses and detox kits. Many of them are low in calories and nutrients, which can result in nutritional deficiencies. Detox diets may actually stress the body and increase your cortisol levels, making it harder to lose weight. Some people experience increased appetite. Extreme detox plans can lead to dehydration and kidney issues. Juice cleanses have been linked to eating disorders because any kind of restrictive detox or fasting can trigger somebody into disordered eating. And detoxes may cause digestive problems. So the bottom line is your body naturally detoxifies itself. Detox diets are not necessary. Instead, focus on eating nutritious whole foods to support your overall health and well-being. Wellness has replaced fashion as a hot topic in journalism, and it's seen as a status symbol or a lifestyle, creating new trends and fads. Fake science and jargon get clicks and sell products, so much so that wellness has become the single most consumed content on the internet. Yes, even more so than cat videos. Shocking, I know. Consumers are bombarded with myths, misinformation, and pseudoscience. Science is being skewed by clickbait titles and dubious science topics based on low-quality studies that have often been completed more for a catchy press release than for any genuine research purpose. Many of the studies are published in journals funded by the wellness industry. 40% of university health and medical press releases contain exaggerated health advice, and 33% overemphasized a causal connection and exaggerated inference between humans based on animal research. 81% of news stories, respectively, contain similar exaggeration. Often journals lack the background and access to experts to verify the claims, leaving questionable claims to just simply go unchecked before they make the news. So it's difficult for consumers to discern fact from fiction, with misleading headlines and buried facts. Celebrity beauty and diet secrets have been sought after for ages. Products seek celebrity endorsements because they know a well-known face equates to better sales. Celebrities promote diets, supplements, workout gear, beauty products, even energy drinks and water. People aren't sure who to trust, so they may look to celebrities or so-called experts just because they're famous. Doesn't mean they're reputable. Social media influencers and celebrity experts often propagate false research results, where they share bad or cherry-picked data that have unrealistic results, and even invent their own ineffective products. Data shows that almost 40% of people in the USA prefer alternative medicine over standard methods. In fact, from Tom Cruise to Angelina Jolie, many celebrities have already embraced non-conventional medicine. Ayurveda, which is the Indian system of medicine that focuses on holistic well-being and the balance of the mind, body, and spirit, or herbal remedies, which we've talked about today, or energy healing. Kenny Biddle says, take a drink. And cupping, which is popular around the Olympics. There's a wide range of alternative methods that are backed by celebrities. but not by science. There are also examples of actual doctors who promote junk science. A prime example of that is Mehmet Oz, who's a surgeon with a TV show, YouTube channel, and a huge following. I'm sure you've all heard of him. He frequently pushes the latest unproven weight loss trends alongside with herbal supplements and hormones that have not been supported by science. He has a record of peddling baseless or wrong health advice and pushing Medicare Advantage, an alternative to the American government run program that's administered by private health companies. Dr. Oz promoted green coffee extract as the magic weight loss cure for every body type. He's warned that GMO foods are unhealthy. He touted umkaloabo root extract as a cure for the common cold, without mentioning the evidence was weak and neglected to mention any of the side effects. He also suggested that putting lavender soap under your bed sheets would put an end to restless leg syndrome. What? Where did he get his degree? Can they take it back? Another example is Dr. Joe Mercola. He's an osteopathic physician who stopped seeing patients back in 2009. And he turned into an alternative wellness advocate who's made a name for himself and amassed a great wealth selling supplements for humans and pets through his online store. His net worth is said to be in excess of $300 million US. With his social media presence, website, podcast, YouTube channel, and books, Mercola is a key player in the wellness industry. His website claims to be, quote, a reliable source of health articles, optimal wellness products, medical news, and free natural newsletter from the natural health expert, Dr. Joseph Mercola, end quote. The doctor's site promotes homeopathy, which we've discussed today, and warns the public about the evils of vaccines. He was recorded on video saying that he uses ChatGTP to write his articles from, quote, a science fiction standpoint to get around the fact checking. Prior to the pandemic, in 2019, an investigation by the Washington Post revealed that Mercola was a major funder of the anti-vaccine movement to the tune of $4 million, with $2.9 million specifically going to the National Vaccine Information Center, which, despite its misleading name, is one of the principal anti-vaccine organizations in the United States. And he was identified as a super spreader of COVID-19 misinformation on Facebook. In March of 2021, the Center for Countering Digital Hate released a report titled The Disinformation Dozen, revealing that Mercola was one of a dozen people responsible for 2/3 of all anti-vaccination content on Facebook and Twitter. It showed how a tiny group of determined anti-vaxxers was responsible for a tidal wave of misinformation. An expose released in March of 2025 by Jonathan Jerry, called The Mercola Tapes, which is available on YouTube, shows that Mercola consults a psychic daily about all of his business dealings. He believes there are health benefits to putting CO2 in his rectum. And he has plans to destroy the veterinary industry. But it's unclear why he feels this is necessary. I highly recommend you check out the documentary. And I know I've primarily focused on herbal products here today, but that's just one aspect of the alternative medicine market. There are more forms than I can even count. People want to empower themselves by taking control of their health. Some of the practices may seem relatively harmless, like meditating and yoga, but they can lead practitioners going further down the pseudoscience path, and they can prevent people from seeking out actual medical treatment. In the case of yoga, which I do daily by myself, there have actually been cults formed around this practice, and several yoga gurus have been charged or accused of sexual assault. I even came across an article titled, quote, "How to Tell If Your Healing Circle is a Cult and What to Do If It Is," end quote. So this is a rampant problem. Some popular practices include acupuncture, acupressure, reflexology, Reiki, energy healing, working your chakras, and healing crystals. Reiki is a form of supposed energy healing where a person puts their hands over your body and heals you without actually touching you. While this may sound harmless enough, it will definitely hurt your wallet. And these treatments, they're not free, and they may delay you getting actual medical treatment. There are some people who believe that Reiki is demonic. And if you're a person of faith, that could be extremely damaging mentally. It could send you into a crisis state where you may seek to rid yourself of the demons or curse. Now, I love rocks and shiny things, but I do not believe that crystals can heal people. So-called healing crystals can be potentially harmful due to the false belief in their healing powers and gemstone toxicity. There are certain types you should avoid due to their toxic elements or potential for harm. For example, malachite. It's beautiful. It's known for its intense green color, and it can be toxic when exposed to water, acids, or heat. So that's not something that you want to wear as jewelry. Orpiment has a striking yellow-orange hue, and it contains arsenic. So, again, it should never be used in a piece where it's worn, where it can come in contact with your skin. The same can be said for real gar, a red-orange crystal that also contains arsenic. Cinnabar is known for its mercury content. This crystal should be handled with extreme caution. Galena is a crystal that contains lead, which is hazardous if it's inhaled or ingested. So you can see where you think crystals are fairly harmless, but there is that potential for danger as well. Acupressure may cause tissue damage, and when you introduce needles into the mix for acupuncture, there can also be anxiety, bleeding, in addition to the bruising. The most common side effects of acupuncture include infections, central nervous system injuries, organ and or tissue injuries, as well as irritation around the stimulation sites. Side effects are estimated to occur in about 10% of individuals. So, although they're uncommon, a small percentage of individuals receiving acupuncture have also ended up dying. In a 2010 publication by Edzard Ernst entitled, quote, "Acupuncture, a Treatment to Die For," end quote, he noted that 86 individuals have died as a result of acupuncture-induced complications. Most of these deaths occurred in China or Japan, but some were recorded in the USA, Germany, and Australia. The most common cause of death was punctured heart or lungs, which you are sticking that way too deep, I'm sorry. But damaged arteries and livers, nerve problems, shock, infection, and hemorrhage were also seen, largely because of incorrect needle placement or failure to sterilize the equipment. Ew! Ernst presented multiple cases in his report, including one of a 44-year-old Chinese woman who died as a result of an acupuncture needle being inserted too far within her heart, ultimately puncturing her right ventricle and leading to rapid death, and another of a 26-year-old Chinese woman who died as a result of an acupuncture needle entering her lung and causing tension pneumothorax. Again, ow. So, whenever I tell my story, I always hear from people who are now reflecting, wondering if that could be what happened to their loved one who had an unexplained illness or died mysteriously. Often people ask me how they can talk to somebody to steer them away from alt med. And the best advice I have is to stay skeptical, be aware of pseudoscience, educate yourself and your loved ones about potential dangers, and how to seek science-based evidence for claims. Look for claims that seem to be too good to be true or that are vague. If there are no side effects or risks mentioned on the package, then chances are great that no clinical trials have been done or that the product, like in the case with homeopathy, is completely useless. Excuse me. Because any active treatment has the possibility of harm, side effects, or an adverse reaction. Be sure to always tell your healthcare providers what you're taking. Do your research. And here I've included a couple of links that are really useful when you're looking for herbal interactions and other information. So don't fall victim to it. Be gentle with yourself, be kind with others, and most importantly, please learn from my mistake. Are there any questions?
Well, thank you very much, Kat. That was wonderful. I'm sorry to hear of your past problems. Hopefully they've mostly recovered.
No, I have permanent health issues because of this. One of them is why I'm coughing today, because I have a tracheal issue.
Um, I can sympathize. I tend to start coughing after 5 minutes of straight talking. You've outperformed me by quite a bit. So hopefully your talk has increased our mental immune capacity towards all this nonsense. Let's see, any questions coming up? See what the chat has to say.
I'm going to drink while you do that.
Okay.
Usually we have people put questions into the chat.
Okay.
Hopefully I haven't traumatized anybody too much.
James Hayes. Oh, here we go. He's okay. Okay, here's the question. Your 108 prednisone, is that milligrams or tablets, or what is exactly the breakdown on that?
I can't remember the exact dosaging now, but I believe it was milligrams. If the average prednisone tablet is 1 milligram, then that's what I was taking. Otherwise, if the average is 5, then I was taking the equivalent of 5 tablets a day. It was a lot, which is why I gained so much weight.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
Okay.
it shut down my adrenal system permanently, so I can't drive because it would be like I'm driving drunk because
Oh,
I
wow.
just don't have adrenaline.
Let's see. How would you deal with friends or family members who insist that they would rather take natural remedies instead of regulated pharmaceuticals?
Ooh, um, well, if they were my friends or family, I would say, have you not listened to my story? Do you not see what I live with every day? But I'm assuming you don't mean my exact friends or family. But that's how I deal with my coworkers. When they're touting the natural remedies, I ask them questions about like, where did you get the remedy? Like, is this something you are growing yourself? Or is this something that you're buying off a shelf? If you're buying it off a shelf, what country did it come from? What country are they in? Because the EU has probably the best regulations. Australia has regulations similar to Canada. And in America, you have the least regulations. So I would kind of like How much homework have they done? What drew them to that conclusion to go down the natural route? A lot of times, not only do people buy into the natural fallacy, but they become invested because they've spent a lot of time and money and they have a lot of hope tied into these natural remedies. So you don't want to just come out and say, you're being crazy, because you're never going to reach them with that message. You have to kind of get them to come to the conclusion that maybe this isn't the best idea for them.
Do you think that over-the-counter supplements will ever be regulated more highly in Canada and or the US? And how would you recommend that citizens advocate for regulation?
Um, in the USA, it's doubtful at this point. And the reason why it hasn't gotten better in Canada is mostly because of the same reason. You have a lot of lobbyists saying, don't take away our choices. What they're neglecting to see is their choice may not be safe. So it's a very difficult path to walk. Last year, Vanessa's Law was enacted in Canada, which said that any hospitals or healthcare providers who saw an adverse reaction from a natural health product, they had to report it like they would with any drug, right? This is standard procedure. That got so much backlash from manufacturers and people selling herbal products. They're like, they're trying to take away your access to things. And it's like, mm-mm. They're just trying to say if somebody's hurt by it, they have to report it. So even having some safety built in gets a lot of pushback from the industry. And because the industry is huge, it is 3 times larger. The natural health product market is 3 times larger than big pharma. So
Wow.
there's a huge pushback that comes with that. And I think really getting it legislated and doing things like I did, like volunteering to sit in and be that kind of thorn in their side to say, this is why you have got to make this safer. You're hurting people like me, you're hurting children. It's one thing if, a person wants to go to a chiropractor, they know the risks, fine. If you want to do that to an infant, that becomes a totally different story and it should have better regulations. But right now, the industry just pushes back hard and they're the ones with all the money, sadly.
Do you have CVS up in Canada? It's a
We don't have CVS, but I've been to a CVS, so I know what it is.
okay, because they've bought out Aetna, so they are a major player in this country on the pharmaceutical consumer side and on the healthcare side. And in their stores, they will mix over OTCs, herbals, and homeopathy all on the same shelf. So if it's in the cold section, you're going to see all 3 versions.
That happens here as well. And in fact, one of my friends, when her child was younger, the child had a fever. It was late at night. She went into the only open drugstore that we had. She went in, she bought something that was for children's fever. And it was only when she got it home that she really read the packaging and saw that it was homeopathic. She was so mad because it was on the shelf right next to everything else, right?
Right.
So it's really a danger that you have to be a vigilant consumer, because they do present it as if it's all the same and it's all equal and it's all tested, and it's not.
Okay, James Hames says, FYI, herbal tea overdose of potassium was a deadly incident. Overdose of potassium is used for lethal injection, yes. Also, the homeopathy relies on a placebo effect, but children don't react as easily to placebos since their brains can't conceptualize the effects. The homeopathic flu medicine that there's a little blurb here. Here we go. Can't capitalize. Okay, homeopathic flu medicine can make parents hesitant about giving kids anything else.
It's very scary.
Okay, and the Center for Inquiry, CFI, has a lawsuit against CVS for those reasons. I don't know the status of that suit. Thank you, Deriva.
Yeah, and it's sad that we do have to have organizations like CFI Canada to go and fight the fight for us, because the individual consumer alone is often screaming into the void. Even people like me, where this has destroyed my health permanently. I was supposed to be dead by age 30. Spoiler alert, I'm over 30. Uh, but I've also almost died countless times over the years. I deal with chronic health issues because of herbal supplements. And even me screaming into the void hasn't been enough many times to make a difference. Which is why I educate pharmacists, I educate med students going in. I'm trying to hit it at the grassroots level.
Okay, I think we've come to the end. There's no more messages popping up. Well, just Ed Gracely just popped in. Is the green tea sold for medicinal purposes the same as the green tea that is a common standard form for drinking in Asia? That's a good one.
It would depend on the market, I'm assuming, because sometimes when it's for medicinal purposes, they will have other things laced in. But when I was speaking about green tea and green tea extract, you can also throw matcha into that. It's just regular green tea that you would, buy anywhere. Wasn't necessarily the medicinal green tea. It's just if you go to Starbucks and get a green tea, that can actually affect your liver. So
Okay.
hopefully that answers Ed's question. If not, let me know.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Kat. We really appreciate it. We'll get this up on YouTube and help and get your message out there.
Thank you so much for having me, Bob, and the rest of FACT. It's been a pleasure.
Okay. Well, people are chiming
Thanks,
in.
Kat.
Thank you. And so we're all thanking you as a group. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Great presentation.